Zilitu is a ranged magic damage focused fighter for the Infernal faction. So you can see up here magic damage, so bonus damage to heavy armored enemies. And in this video we're going to go over absolutely everything there is to know about Zilitu. She is incredibly good, so congratulations if you've pulled her, and let's get started. So first off, her faction. She is a member of the Infernal faction. This is really important and one of the main reasons why Zilitu is so good. There are two lords for the Infernal faction, Pyros and Twin Fiend. Both of their lord bonuses focus around their ultimates. So for Pyros it's Destruction Command, and for Twin Fiend it is Meteoric Strike. Pyros' Destruction Command will grant allies penetration increase to 10 seconds, which means they ignore 30% of the enemy's defense and magic resist. That's a really powerful bonus. Whereas Twin Fiend, as a legendary, he grants that, but additionally he grants 20% crit rate, but more importantly he grants 30% crit damage. Late game, most of your heroes will be maxed out on crit rate anyway, but this will help a lot early game. These two skills, Destruction Command and Meteoric Strike, are the ultimates of either of these two characters. And quickly to just mention why this is important to Zilitu, both of these ultimates apply the focus fire effect. This means that either Pyros or Twin Fiend selects an enemy, they focus on them, and they make all faction allies in the same team focus on that enemy as well, and they charge up to deal a massive burst of damage. So for a duration, you can see the allies just standing around building damage up, and they release a massive nuke all at once. They do not attack during the charge period, and that is very important for Zilitu, which we'll get into in just a second. But anyway, the Infernal faction is super good, and the Infernal Lords are one of the reasons Zilitu shines so much. So now to get into the actual meat behind Zilitu and what makes her so good. So to start off with, we'll look at her hero details. She has a block of 2, which is very standard for fighters, a cost of 18, which is kind of smack bang on the average cost for a fighter, a revival of 60, which is just the default. At max level awakenings, you can see her attack range is actually quite good, 3 tiles forward and the adjacent tiles next to her and in front of her. So she has a pretty good attack range, and this does expand out, just so you know, to the full rectangle covering these 4 additional tiles here when her ultimate is activated. So she does have a good range, especially for a fighter. As far as her base stats go, her health is kind of average, maybe slightly low, especially compared to the Nightmare fighters, and her attack compared to the Nightmare fighters is a little bit low as well, but it is not bad. An attack interval of 2.6 seconds is also fairly average for fighters, so nothing exceptionally unusual or fantastic about her base stats, but her attack range is really nice and very useful. So with all the basics covered, let's finally take a look at her skills and see what makes Zilitu so special. So her first attack deals 100% damage to one enemy, upgrading to 120% with 4 skill ups, and it includes airborne units. She can attack flying enemies, and if the enemies are being blocked, so not just by Zilitu but by allies as well, they take 20% more damage, which is quite an interesting extra bonus there. Her ultimate, when activated manually, will increase her damage by 300% in a larger range for 25 seconds. That upgrades to 380% extra damage and 35 seconds at max skill ups, and it burns the enemy every time Zilitu attack. Additionally, whenever she kills an enemy during the ultimate's duration, it will extend the duration of her ultimate. Burning itself deals 20% magic damage per second for 5 seconds, and you can have stacks. Burning can stack from different sources, so other allies can apply this as well. As said earlier, this ultimate will increase her attack range, as is displayed when you click the view icon on the right. So her first passive, Soul Siphoning. Each attack will deal additional true damage by 40% attack to the target above 80% HP. This increases to 60% of her attack as true damage. The enemies do have to be above 80% health threshold in order for this bonus to take effect. Her second passive, Empress Might, charges energy after 3 seconds of not dealing damage, increases damage by 5% all the way up to 10% per second, up to 25%. The charged enemy will be consumed in 1 second. The damage increase will end. So if she is not attacking for 3 seconds, she will begin to stack up damage rapidly up to 25%, and it will be consumed in the next attack. This synergizes very well with Focus Fire from the Infernal faction lords, and that's one of the reasons why she does so much damage. When she's standing still channeling for the Focus Fire attack, she's gaining a massive amount of bonus damage, and it unleashes a massive nuke. You pair this with an enemy above 80% health, and while her ultimate is active, dealing 300% extra damage or 380% at max skill ups, and if the enemy's blocked as well, there's just so many damage and effects to all stack and come together for a massive nuke of attacks. Next up, we'll talk about Zilitu's awakenings. These are, of course, if you manage to pull duplicates of Zilitu or if you get a legendary Sage Soulstone from Guild Boss rewards. So the first awakening enhances her Soul Siphoning passive, her first passive, and it reduces the HP requirement from 80% to 70%. We're unsure exactly how this works in Guild Boss, but we do believe it does affect the Guild Boss, so I'm not sure the first awakening has a lot of effect in Guild Boss, which is her main use. The second awakening awakening is 15% crit damage. This is quite nice. It's just a flat bonus damage. It's quite a good amount of bonus damage. You will want her at max crit rate when possible. Zilitu's third awakening, Will of Hegemony, duration plus 10 seconds. That's her ultimate. So it's 25% with no skill ups, 35 with skill ups, and 45 with third awakening. 45 seconds of 300% bonus damage, better attack range and burning, and extended when you kill enemies. It's ridiculous. It's a massive amount of damage. It's a long duration. It's great attack range, good debuffs, a very, very good awakening. Awakening 3 really helps in guild boss as well. It just maintains a much longer period of damage out on the boss, and it makes it a bit easier to time things as well. But we'll get into that later, as it guild boss really is the main thing about Zilitu. Zilitu's fourth awakening increases the rage regen generated by her attacks by +2 flat. Simply, this gains 2 extra rage whenever she makes an attack. It's not crazy, but it isn't too bad. The rage cap of her ultimate is 1100, which is actually quite high. At max skill ups, that goes down to 900. So you're really going to have to make quite a substantial number of attacks for +2 to have a great deal of meaning. It will have her ultimate up sooner, and the uptime on her ultimate is very important. And finally, Zilitu's fifth awakening, Empress Might, gets enhanced, and it now recovers 10% HP for every stack of recharge consumed during Empress Might. So it gives her some way of self-sustaining to a degree. So if she's not attacking for a while, the next time she attacks, she'll be consuming the charges and restoring for max HP. I don't think this is super important. Really, I think the third awakening is the most important for Zilitu. The fourth is kind of nice. The second is fairly decent. The first can help in campaign and general progression, but the third one is really good. So if you are aiming for awakenings, the third awakening is the one to go for. I don't really think the rest of them are that good personally. The third one is really nice though. Next up, I'm going to talk about my Zilitu, how I've geared her, and then we'll talk about gearing her generally, sets to go for, and artifacts before we move on where to use her. This is my Zilitu on the Forerunner server, so this is a separate server to the global server, and I've been using her for a long time to great effect. Mine is geared in triple attack percent on the main stats, picking up crit damage from the Ancient Wrath set and from the Annihilating Might set. That way I still have a really good amount of crit damage while also having a great amount of attack bonus. I have picked up some attack speed, but not a great deal, and ideally I should have had more rage regen to get her ultimate up sooner. Unfortunately, mine has no awakenings. I have massively overkilled the crit rate, but that's just kind of how the gear rolled out for her. If you're early in the game, I would focus primarily on attack bonus. If you are more towards mid game, I would try to make sure that you're doubling her base attack in bonus. So this flat value here of 4.6k, I would be looking to see around 9k at least in the green value before focusing on bonus crit damage. And of course, you want to have at least 90 to 100% crit rate before focusing on crit damage as well. So yeah, typically my goal is to reach 100% crit rate while also doubling my base attack, and then also focusing on crit damage. But those are the first two goals, the maxed crit rate and doubled attack, before it is worth it to focus on crit damage, because you do start with a base 50% crit damage. So that's my suggestion on general stat focus, and do pick up some rage regen as well. Attack speed does help make the most out of her ultimate. Usually a good thing to aim for later on is over 120 attack speed. If you're earlier in the game, then it's not as important as attack and crit rate, but if you're able to hit attack and crit rate milestones, pick up a little bit of crit damage, and then you can build some attack speed, it's good to get what you can. Generally, I think it might be a bit better to get rage regen to allow you to get more ultimates off in the guild boss, but the main focus is her damage per attack in my opinion. So let's talk gear sets, and I feel the need to say this every time, but please do focus on your stats before the gear sets. The gear sets, while nice, this is only going to be granting up to 60% crit damage, and you could easily throw that away in bad substats if you have really poor gear. And this is a very end game set. The Ancient Wrath is only attainable in 19 to 21. So let's talk accessory sets first. My personal preference for gear sets for the accessories for Zilitu, I think the best accessory set for her in the game is the Infernal Roar set. This just increases your basic attack damage by 40%, but that is largely what Zilitu is doing, so I think it's really nice for her. Also, these extra sets at the end, the golden set, which you can only get from stages 19 to 21 in each respective raid, they have 10% higher base stats, so you are gaining a decent amount more attack or crit damage on your mains. After that, I think the Ancient Wrath set is also a very good option. It gives you 30% crit damage up front. It also benefits from 10% higher main stats, and you can get another 30% crit damage after making 30 attacks, which you will easily do quite quickly in the guild boss, which again is Zilitu's main point of content that we'll get to a little bit later. Outside of these top sets, there are a bunch of good sets that you can use on Zilitu. I'll focus mainly on the mid game. If you're early game, just focus on the stats, or focus on the stats that grant you damage like Twisted Blade. Of the mid game sets, the one I recommend the most is Doom. It is just a flat 18% single target damage. That is what Zilitu does. She does single target damage. There is no caveat to this, there is no requirement to activate it, you will just gain this damage flat, which is really reliable and really nice. Another good set from Gear Raid 3 for Zilitu is Fracture. It increases your crit damage by 45%, but only when your HP is above 70%. Personally, I am not super fond of this set, as you may find that while you're sorting your teams out or changing healers, it can often happen that your health just falls below the 70% threshold when you're not expecting it. And you do lose out on a lot of bonuses when this happens, so I prefer the reliability of the Doom set just to guarantee to have the damage versus sometimes having the damage on the Fracture set. But if you have good healers, this should be active most of the time. From Gear Raid 2, it's primarily going to be the Night Terror set. It gives you 25% increased damage for 3 seconds after making any critical hit. So as long as your attack speed is faster than that and her base interval is 2.6, she should permanently have 25% damage bonus. One thing to note though is while she is channeling the Focus Fire with a Pyros or a Twin Fiend Faction Lord, this will expire because you do channel for longer than that. The window between your first hit and the next hit will surpass 3 seconds and that will time out. So that is unfortunate. Again, the reason why I prefer the consistency of the Doom set. And finally, from Gear Raid 2, I think the Fatality set is pretty reasonable. 3% attack is something, and ignoring extra defense and resistance on the enemy can help quite a good amount. So those are the main sets that I would suggest. Infernal Roar if you're able to, Ancient Wrath as well is great. Then it's Doom, Night Terror, Fracture, and Fatality, with my preference of the lower sets being Doom. Of the weapon set, so on the left side, the weapon and the chest piece, the best set is of course the Warlord, as it grants you attack and attack speed. The second best would be Calamity, because it grants you the attack, which is the most important stat for a DPS. After that would come Annihilating Might for crit damage. And finally, I would recommend Whirlwind, though if you are low on attack speed, say your build has no attack speed, then I would actually prioritize Whirlwind over the other sets, other than of course Warlord, which grants you attack speed as well. So to summarize the weapon sets, I would choose the Warlord as a first priority if able to farm it. If you are not able to farm it, I would focus on Calamity or Annihilating Might. It depends on where your balance is on attack versus crit damage and how high your crit rate is, but generally I prefer the Calamity. And the Whirlwind set is kind of the last pick. However, if your attack speed is low, notably if it's under 60, then definitely get the Whirlwind set. If you're around 120 or more, then you might not need it as much. I do prefer to focus on the single hit damage bursts for Zilitu, as it scales better with Focus Fire and her ultimate multiplier. So attack speed is really nice, it does generate more rage, but I want to maximize the burst damage from the Focus Fire ultimate. So now we'll move on to artifacts for Zilitu. As I've said many times already, Zilitu is primarily a guild boss hero. She is the best hero in the game for guild boss, and the best artifact in the game for guild boss for a fighter is currently the Scarlet Hunt. This grants extra damage to bleeding targets. It starts at 20%, and at max level it grants 30% extra damage. So there's an important caveat to this. The enemy needs to be bleeding, so you need someone to apply the bleeding. The main proponent of bleed at the moment is Salazar. He is the most common hero to apply bleed with. So obviously I would not recommend using Scarlet Hunt on Zilitu if you do not have a bleed hero. However, if you don't have any other myth artifacts, then it's still good. The stats will help a lot. There is a big difference in stats. On my website, I do have a artifact tier list, and you can see for fighters, Scarlet Hunt is at the top. Again, you do need to have a Salazar in the party or someone else who can apply bleed reliably. However, this tier list does include artifacts which are not available on the global server just yet. So of the myth artifacts, I would recommend the Scarlet Hunt, and I've heard that the Crystal of Vileness is pretty good. So if you do have both of them, probably choose Crystal of Vileness over Scarlet Hunt if you do not have a bleed hero. Otherwise, if you are only on the legendary tier of artifacts, Watchguard's Ambition can double attack, and Slayer's Presence increases damage while your HP is above 80%, so it's not bad either. Aside from these two, I wouldn't really focus on any artifacts. I would wait until you pull either one of these, or the Crystal of Vileness, or Scarlet Hunt. So that's my priority. Scarlet Hunt, absolutely at the top if you do have Salazar. If you have a Crystal of Vileness and no Salazar, use that instead. And if you only have Scarlet Hunt, then just use that for stats. The stats on Scarlet Hunt will be better than using any of the legendary ones. And if you have only the legendary ones, then one of these two, but probably Slayer's Presence for the bonus damage overall. So that covers Zilitu, what she does, her awakenings, her gear, and her artifact. Quickly, just to mention on her skill ups, if you're wondering where to stop in skilling her up, probably want to take her all the way, but predominantly you really need her ultimate maxed. That's one thing I haven't mentioned yet. I would definitely focus on max skilling her ultimate. But if you can get the rest of her skill ups, it would be pretty nice. Definitely want Will of Hegemony, and you definitely want Empress Might. And even the base magic attack, 20% extra damage, will help a lot. She is going to be your main damage dealer in Guild Boss from now until the end of time. So with that, I've mentioned Guild Boss a great deal of times. Let's talk about Guild Boss. Let's get Zilitu in, and we'll talk about how it works. Now we'll go over how to use Zilitu in the guild boss, as that is the best area in the game for her. That is where she truly shines and where she is unparalleled. After that, we'll look at some other areas in the game where she can be used. She is quite dependent on having a faction lord. Pyros is the one I rely on, as I do not have a twin fiend. Again, this is the Forerunner server, this is not the global server. For Pyros, he has the ultimate destruction command. He channels for 15 seconds. Around halfway through this, the focus fire finishes and he fires the massive 700% nuke along with all infernal members in the team. However, you will notice that Dolores does not fire this attack because she is not a damage dealer. She doesn't do damage. She doesn't fire anything. So to capitalize on this benefit, you'll want to bring multiple infernal DPS as well, so that you can max out the team and increase the damage dealt by destruction command or by the meteorite spell from Twin Fiend. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just take a bare bones team so I can show you the timing and positioning. And I've just moved down to Nightmare 2 so I can break the shields and explain the run in full. Okay, so the first thing to do is obviously to place your Zilitu down. It can be any of these 3 tiles, as I went over in my guild boss video. You'll need to make sure she's in range of a healer so she doesn't die. And importantly, she'll need Dolores covering her as well so you can get the attack boost. Pyros will of course need to be down so that he can attack the boss. So there's a few things that are important to note about how to make this really shine. If you just ult with Zilitu, you can see her making attacks on the boss. Around 208,000 damage that did just there. So you can see her ult hitting for around 215, 216,000 damage. And that's not bad, that's pretty good damage, but it can be better. So of course, if you ultimate with Dolores, that will go up massively. And now we can see her hitting for 350,000. So that's a huge damage increase already. Now we'll do the exact same thing, but we'll also throw in the focus fire from Pyros. So, focus fire from Pyros. There's some really weird timings on this, the destruction command ultimate, and I'll explain exactly how to use this, as this is incredibly important to maximize the damage from Zilitu. So, if I want to time this so that I get Dolores' boost, I can wait a little bit, we're pretty close, so I can ult now. And you can see the bar progressing on Pyros, and if I speed it up a bit, you'll see it fires around the halfway mark, just a bit before. It fired on both characters, the ultimates fired off, and we got the big nuke. Now we're going to do it again, and this time I'm going to try to activate the ultimate on Zilitu. So once again, everyone goes down. Okay, so this time I don't worry too much about the Dolores ult. We know the timings, you need to ult before halfway on the charge. So I'm going to ultimate from Pyros. The channeling begins, everyone stops attacking, and I'm going to try and ult on Zilitu. And you'll see that I can't ult, nothing happens. It doesn't allow me to trigger it, and then it fires off and I don't do a great amount of damage. So instead, there is something you can do to make sure that you are able to ultimate on Zilitu, as you want to maximize your damage increase. You may wonder, well, why don't you just ultimate on Zilitu immediately? It's because the ultimate on Zilitu, her ult lasts a long time, 35 seconds at max skill ups. And Pyros' ultimate actually has a really low rage cap. So if you time things perfectly, you can fire 2 ultimates from Pyros while Zilitu still has her ultimate activated. And that's the optimal way to use her in Guild Boss. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the second time. Things are slightly different. You can actually, for some reason, turn on Zilitu's ultimate during Pyros' channel after the first time. It's a bit strange. I'm going to change the camera angle as well so we can see things a bit better. But you can see I can now activate Zilitu's ult and it's still channeling, so there's no problem. But look at the damage. Pause it when it comes up and I'll replay it. You see that? That's massive, massive damage. So that's what you want. You really need Dolores plus Pyros' ult on Zilitu. And then now, because I activated it later, if I just speed through this, you'll notice that Pyros' ult comes up a lot sooner because I ultimated a lot later on Zilitu because I was allowed to do it during the channel. So now I can ult while there's still a bit of duration left on Zilitu. And you'll see it fires while I still have the buff up. So I still get a second massive nuke. The second one won't be with a Dolores boost, but it's still going to be a load of damage. So that is the way you play this combo in Guild Boss, very simply. The first time you just try to do it as tight as you can, and you hope that you're able to get the sweet spot and land the ultimate twice within 1 Zilitu ult. So 2 Pyros ults with focus fire within 1 Zilitu ult duration. And then for some reason, from that point onwards, you're able to just ult whenever you want. I'm going to lose this Dragon Spit because this is just a demo, but you can see I've already activated it. The channeling's already begun, but for some reason you can activate Will of Hegemony after that. So it's only the first one that you can't. Anyway, that's it. That's how the Guild Boss strategy works for Zilitu. I'm not going to go over the entire team. I just wanted to explain specifically how to use Zilitu with an Infernal Lord. Massive, massive damage, and she really does shine in Guild Boss. So we've been over how to use Zilitu in Guild Boss, how to gear her, artifacts, pretty much everything we can cover. All that remains is perhaps using her in Arena. using her in some of the raids where she's useful generally. So let's go about where else you can use her. There's a bunch of content in the game. I do have a tier list that will show you exactly where you can use Zilitu, and there is a load of stuff you can use her in. Promotion raid, she'll be great because she's a ranged fighter. Ranged fighters are great everywhere. They have a block of 2. They can attack everything in the game. They're just generally fantastic. In the resource raids, this is more AoE content and you need to be dealing rapid group damage. She's not so good here, but this content's easy anyway, so that doesn't matter. Guild boss, she's the best in the game, so that's fantastic. For the gear raids, Zilitu is not good in Gear Raid 1 because she doesn't do area damage. In Gear Raid 2, she does have some niche benefits. You can put her behind a defender so that she can get some good damage out. In Gear Raid 3, she can actually be really good to kill the boss in the middle. So if you take a look at the map info, you'll notice that there is a Zilitu boss, the Succubus Queen, that will fly through the middle lane, and you can place ground tiles in these 2 spaces. So they do have fighter tiles here, and it is just for heroes like Zilitu and later on Arrogance and Araka and Apsan. That's what these fighter tiles are for. So Zilitu can help a lot. She can really do some good damage here, and she's great at, well, killing herself, the Succubus Queen that spawns as the boss of this stage. So she is pretty good in Gear Raid 3 to help deal with the burst damage required for the boss. She's also pretty good in the artifact material raid. You need a lot of burst damage to kill the boss in the middle, the Salazar that walks out through here. A small placement tip for Zilitu in the artifact material raid. She has a really good attack range, as we've discussed already. If I place her here facing right, she will block the enemies to the left. She will still attack Salazar, and she will actually attack on the right side when she has time to as well. So you can see she absolutely just slaughters these guys here. She's going to be dealing damage there. And if I throw down a hero to block, she still has enough range to help deal with those guys. So when she's not attacking Salazar, she can actually help over that side as well. She will typically prioritize Salazar though. But you can see here she actually attacked a creep that was moving through. It did get through in time, but it's cool that she has the ability to do that. As for the rest of content, she's actually quite good in the basic faction trial because you do need magic damage for this content. If you take a look at the guides, if you go to the map info for basic trial, you'll see that quite a number of these enemies, Dimitri, the Fallen Defenders, and the Fallen Overseers, they all have heavy armor. That means they're taking 20% more damage from magic damage, which Zilitu does do, and she's good to place behind a defender, so she's pretty good in the basic trial. The main thing that matters for Tide is your battle power. And for me, Zilitu is one of the highest BP heroes I have, and for many others, she actually has a naturally high battle power. So she's good in Tide just by default, by virtue of having a high BP. And outside of that, I would say Zilitu is generally a really good hero to use. She's great in campaign, she's great when Void Rift does later get added. And in arena, in single target DPS, she's one of the best heroes, used in conjunction with a Twin Fiend ideally, but can work with a Pyros to have a nuke team. Timed with a Dolores, you can just blow up the later really strong enemies, and especially at the higher ranks of arena, she can get very fast clearances. Salazar is still the best for this because he's more reliable, his ult comes up easier, and he's less dependent on having a Lord. She's still useful in sustained DPS as well, though a little bit lower, mainly because there are more enemies in sustained DPS arena. Single target has more individual tankier enemies, so her massive burst damage in one lump with the focus fire ultimates works out a bit better. It doesn't quite work in AoE DPS, you won't see her in this arena just because she doesn't do any AoE at all. And you can use her in anti-air, but it's not great. She is an air fighter, she can attack air targets, but she doesn't hit enough at a time. This is kind of AoE content, you need to hit a number of them. There are those specific large evil eyes, and she can be great for dealing with those guys, but generally the anti-air DPS relies more on AoE damage as there's so many enemies coming in, and typically they take more damage from piercing damage rather than magic. So Zilitu in arena is best in single target DPS, and she's decent in sustained DPS. I wouldn't say she's the top, though there are some top teams, like the absolute strongest teams, quite a few of them do use a Infernal lineup with Zilitu. So that covers my guide to Zilitu. I hope you enjoy her on your account. I hope you have a great deal of success for her. The main focus again would be on Guild Boss. She is primarily a really good Guild Boss hero, and she is great for progressing through difficult campaign and later through the Void Rift that gets added. You will be able to use her in a vast amount of content though, so she'll serve you very, very well. Anyway, that's it for the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great day, take care, and bye-bye.